Actually, were you ever that person that felt that they couldn't change? Because I feel like I flickered in and out of it quite a lot. Like, sometimes
Mm.
I felt it like I could, sometimes I felt like I couldn't. Like, on my journey, it happened around getting relationships and dating figured out, around, when we were going really hard in meditation in Theravada Buddhism, there was definitely a lot of, like, am I actually able to attain first path of nibbana? That's gonna be really
Right.
niche for a lot of people. And then it's also like working through my insecurities too. Like, is this actually possible? Because you have so much things around, like, I don't blame people, but I mean, me and you talk about it all the time. What are the two main issues and glaring holes that most coaches and therapists we've heard of, or whatever is there, have, which is they don't go to the root cause and heal from that bottom up rather than top downing, and they just stay in symptoms, and they don't have an embodied practice that comes afterward, which
Yeah.
lets them enable them
Yeah.
to do things. So I think when you have so much exposure to that, and even in some of the first mentors that we encountered and some of the first frameworks, there was almost like baked into it, like, if someone does have a real deep transformational change where they actually become a different person, whilst obviously still remaining true to themselves, like, that's like a unicorn. That's like a needle in
Mm.
a haystack, that kind of idea. So I know that
Yeah.
it's very easy that when you've been on this kind of hero's journey that me or you have been on, and the people that following us have been on, sometimes that can actually work to your detriment when it comes to really sitting
Mm.
down and doing the deep work, at least from my experience and from my clients' experiences, because you've done all of it and you've had enough of the benefits to kind of see what people are talking about, like, oh, like higher self, like getting over habits, and then you can kind of maybe delude yourself into thinking that's the glass ceiling.
Yeah.
I'm wondering from
Yeah.
your story, like piecing together what I said, was that something that you struggled with?
A little bit in a slightly different way. For me, what tended to arise was just a sense of stuckness where I would always create a story of I haven't actually moved. And yet I would never hold the belief that I can't change. I would just always be in the idea that I haven't actually changed,
Wow.
which is very weird.
Yeah,
And so,
not ideal.
yeah, not ideal. One thing I was even noticing was with the business, where the story would come up is if I would have a certain month that like was did really, really well, went beyond what was maybe normal for me by sometimes like a few K, like more than I'm used to.
Yeah.
And I remember I wouldn't count it at first.
Mm,
Like I was like, that doesn't count
yeah.
because of it came through this direction, or that
Wow.
doesn't count because it didn't fit into the story. Like, and I
Yeah.
would really believe it. So I
Wow.
would use whatever, like I would believe the story that, oh, it doesn't count because of da 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 da, right? And I wouldn't, and then so I'd get to keep my identity at this stage.
Mm,
And even if there was physically times where the number was up here,
mhm,
it wouldn't count.
mm,
And so that was how it showed up for me. It was just like, oh, I haven't actually done anything. Like,
right.
oh, you know, that no, that doesn't count. That doesn't count. Even when we were obviously growing within dating and relationships, or even growing in this internal work,
Mm,
there was a little bit of like, oh, I haven't actually changed. And when I would look objectively and embody the person of me maybe a year or 2 years ago, and I'd be like, well, life is extremely different. So what are you talking about?
mm,
And then the voice would just be, no, no, you haven't actually changed.
yeah.
And it was just like this crazy, weird thing of you haven't actually made a difference.
Mm, mhm.
And so it would arise that way for me. But it's interesting hearing for you the perspective of can't change. And what I'm curious about is you shared that you experienced that sometimes even in the dating relationship stuff.
Yeah.
What was like moving forward with that? Because that must have been really hard having that like in the background.
Yeah, it wasn't an ideal situation. It almost feels like an anchor, and how it gets described to me with clients is like something weighing them down or pulling them back. Other ways it can kind of show up is like this skepticism, like checking. Like, I
Mm.
recently had a client. or not recently he's had a client, but recently it came up for him where he was like, and we went in and we addressed it, which is great, which is why whenever you're working with this kind of stuff, you always have to allow the obstacle to emerge, because only then can you get to the root of it and break through. But he had a big issue around like, "Oh, I've made breakthroughs and had insights like this before, but nothing's really changed." So you have to deal with that first, because otherwise it's gonna be like an anchor. Now, before I had access to any of this kind of work, you just kinda have to willpower it through, which works sometimes and doesn't work other times. But it is essentially like fighting through something which is completely unnecessary. Because a lot of it also comes down to like, oh, at least for me, if I address this, if I let that obstacle come up, then maybe I don't have the means to overcome it. So I'm just gonna pretend like it's
Mm,
not there and like kind of work around it. So recently, another client who we're just starting working together, she was saying how there was this concern that came up, right? When we already got together a plan about how we were gonna tackle the issue that she was going through. She's been to like meditation retreats, she's been to see like holistic therapists. She has a bit of ADHD, so some ADHD work, some one-on-one coaching. So she's really been there and done that. Successful as well, like has her own business where she's able to, where she quit everything, so took a massive risk. She's a risk taker, a high achiever, all that kind of stuff. But she'd done so much work on this area of her life, specifically around certain coping mechanisms and feeling good enough and feeling worthy, all of that fun stuff that me and you have worked with quite a lot, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. You know, she had this big concern as well, like, is change actually possible for me? Is this actually going to work this time? Because I mean, I'm not in the business of necessarily deconstructing other therapists' methods who I don't know very well, because I'm not in the room, I don't know their method, all that kind of stuff. Actually, to give benefit of the doubt, it seems like she did really good work together with this other therapist, because she was held in unconditional compassion, which is more than most people will do it, and sadly, in their coaching practice. And that
yeah,
was a beautiful relationship in order to grow. This relation, relation is one of the most powerful modalities of healing that you can have, relational therapy. And she was given this environment of acceptance and compassion, and she was able to emotional release and all that kind of stuff. But fundamentally, her coping mechanisms stayed, like doom scrolling, like comparing herself to others, like not wanting to get out of bed, all that kind of stuff. And the reason why, and me and Cameron were talking about this before we started recording, is because you're not getting to the reason why that stuff hasn't worked is because you haven't done, or you haven't been given a framework, you haven't been given a mentor that has the understanding of how to actually get to the bottom of things.
yeah,
Like how
yeah.
to actually gets to the bottom of the root cause. And me and you were not born with this ability. So we know all of the different ways that you can go about it. We've been stuck at symptom, we've been stuck at unaware. I mean, God knows I've been stuck at unaware and a lot of different things. We've been stuck in just working with triggers, we've been stuck with just working with mental processes, which is still actually quite deep. And it's only in the last couple of years that this getting to the root of things has become so clear and it's become so embedded in our practice. And it's almost like saying, if I'm good at jujitsu, why am I not good at table tennis?
Mm,
Well, the reason why is because they're not necessarily the same thing. They're both sports. They're both, you both can get good at them with like footwork and reflexes and train and all that kind of stuff. But really, they're entirely different things. Like if you're just working with,
yeah.
what's the word that everyone uses now, Cameron? Like not
What,
soothing,
the
self-soothing.
nervous system,
Oh, regulation.
yeah,
That's it. Regulation.
regulation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like that's great. And people should know it. But it's not getting you to where you need to go.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It also, what emerges for me is another tone of it can be almost getting so focused on the leaves. You know,
Mm,
we use this metaphor the other day of the forest or the rainforest, right? The leaves being the symptom, that sometimes we make such deep change at the roots, at the trunk, and everything internally is changing. But sometimes the leaves can take a little bit of time.
mm,
Especially I've noticed with addictions, it almost feels like they either go straight away
yeah,
or there's like they're tied to a few different things.
yeah.
And I know for me, one of my challenges actually was paying so much attention to the leaves of, oh, this symptom is still around right now for some reason,
Yeah.
even though I've done a lot of work around it. And then when I started to look at the internal kind of ecosystem and rainforest, it was such a different experience
Mm,
of how I was viewing the world, how I was experiencing life,
mm,
that it got to the point where the leaf didn't matter so much.
mm.
And there would be almost a trust that it would start to fall away. I
Interesting.
know with more clients that have spent a little bit more time with me, when we work with it in that way,
Mm,
where we're actually even giving more time to just let the light do its thing, right? We go through a process. Maybe we start with some kind of symptom.
mhm.
And I don't often do this with people who are brand new because we want to get something really tangible really quickly, just to give them that trust and that confidence. But with people who already have the trust and the confidence, when the light emerges, what I've been playing with is just letting the light be as uninterrupted as possible,
Wow.
to the point where we're barely giving it any labels. Because
Mm,
actually, the labeling of it, even labeling it off as lightness,
mm,
it becomes lightness to the point where I might just be with what's arising,
yeah,
right? And what's been really cool is it's been a little bit less A to B, to the point where people, if it was a brand new person, it would be a little bit too abstract for them to notice.
yeah.
But with these people, it's just been generating such a crazy difference in how deep the state can go and how even how broad it can go,
Mhm,
that when it does kind of almost surface up to the leaves, it's just been breaking like dozens of constructs at a time.
mm,
And the reason I bring that up is that was almost a shift for me when it came to the, is it changing? Is it changing? Because the part of me that was asking that question
mm.
was so like needed like the most obvious change to
Yeah.
say that it was working, right? It
I'm
needed like
free.
real permission.
I'm free, Cameron.
Yeah,
Needed the clients
yeah,
that. Yeah, I've been there as well.
yeah. You know,
Yeah.
it needed like the perfect, most obvious change. But as soon as I was just with that part, help that part kind of come into more maturity,
Mm,
and it was step back into witnessing too,
mm,
there was something about seeing the system as a whole
yeah.
and seeing that even that obvious change, which is great, we do that too. But even that is not really what we're looking for.
Mm,
You know, you and I both came from a background of a great hypnotherapy modality, which I think is fantastic.
yeah.
But it often goes from A to B, and
Yeah.
it's almost like we're just going to cut out the the branch of that.
Yeah.
So you're not going to do that thing that you came here. You're going to get the result you want.
Yeah.
Great,
Right.
but there's so much richness in the reason that it began.
Mm.
Right? There was a reason that you
It began
started
to work.
smoking, or
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
there was a reason that you had that addiction to begin with. And measuring it by if you stop the addiction is useful, but what I'm curious about is almost the next evolution of just seeing all the richness that's there anyway.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, that modality was great. I mean, I still use it all the time in my integrated
Yeah,
in my work.
yeah,
But you're getting onto something there, which is why, a lot of the people that come to us are different, but they have the same kind of aim, which is, yes, I want to get over this addiction or this habit, but I also there's this whole other side of me that I want to tap into. That's why we do it the way that we do it because
yeah.
A lot of the time, those addictions or habits or behaviors are just coping mechanisms, or they're avoidance cycles, you can call them, where you're trying to avoid something. So by just getting rid of the avoidance or the habit, amazing, that can be have a massive difference in someone's life. Somebody stops doom scrolling, first of all, they just get all of that time back. Second of all, all of the bad health conditions that come with just looking at a screen, like eyes, headache, all that kind of stuff, that goes as well. It's phenomenal. However, what it doesn't get rid of is the reason that you are doing that avoidance. Now, with
Yeah,
this hypnotherapy method that we started off with, the reason why it's so effective is because usually you have to go back to what's avoiding it, right? Like, what's avoiding it? So it's not, like, so reductionistic, but what it
yeah,
missed out on is, well, now that we have all this extra space, or all this extra lightness, or all this extra warmth, it manifests in so much different ways, like freedom, right? Now we have all of this extra energy, we'll just call it energy because it's easier, that used to be tied up in smoking, in doom scrolling, in porn, in wanting to go out and have risky sex, in, in all the, Cameron's giving me a cheeky smile right now, which is why
straight from the booklet.
I couldn't stay on that.
Yeah,
Yeah. What's another one? Oh, excessive partying, or excessive
yeah,
use of drugs and alcohol to rely on that in order to be confident, right? So many different ways. Now all that energy is not being used up there. How can we take this energy and move it into the areas of your life which you actually want to go into? So it's
yeah,
what I'm hearing from you, Cameron, is you're getting people out of surviving and also getting them into thriving at the same time, which is
yeah,
we're getting rid of the surviving habits like avoidance, and we're allowing all of that energy. It's not just like we get out of it, there's all of that energy let out from that, and we're guiding that into what we actually want to do, our ideals, our goals. Would that be fair to say?
yeah. Yeah, I think you put it really, really great. And I appreciate you putting, I think, better wording to it, actually. It almost feels like sometimes we can get caught up in that fix it mentality, just getting rid of problem A, B, C, D.
Yeah,
And then when we move away from that into actually, this is really about the light that's there,
yeah,
really about that that version of you that is so bright, but is so vast, that experiences such joy and wonder and awe in the world.
mm,
What's it like to truly allow that version of you to emerge?
mm,
Because most likely that version of you that emerges when it emerges fully without shadow and with just in that full light and all of the energy returned home, it's very unlikely that you're going to be addicted to anything.
yeah,
Right? And if you do it fully, it's almost 100%. I'd say that you're going to have any kind of addiction.
yeah,
And so that stuff falls away just by allowing the most true version of us to come forward,
mm,
right? And that more being the goal than even getting rid of problem A or B,
yeah,
coming into the truest, most divine expression of who we are.
yeah. You said that you do this with more experienced clients because the clients that you have that aren't with you as much, it maybe gets a bit too abstract for them. How is it that you would still facilitate that for those clients? That maybe this might be a bit
Yeah,
abstract, and maybe they might be stuck really into
yeah,
the problem.
yeah. Well, I think, and you probably experience the same when we're working with a new relationship, we want to get really obvious wins
Yeah,
so that all parts know that this is working and it generates all trust.
yeah.
Even for that part that's like deeply critical, that might be like, I need the most obvious one. Well, if you stop them having some kind of addiction they've had for 10 years, it's going to be fairly
I say
obvious,
that's a pretty
right?
big win. Yeah,
Yeah, like it's a pretty big win. It's hard to
yeah,
say that that's not true,
yeah.
which then just generates the trust to keep moving into deeper, more fulfilling work,
And in some ways,
but work that's,
as well.
yeah, more impactful work in many ways. Like it generates so much light, it impacts their life in, much more ways than just stopping an addiction.
Mm,
right? And living the most beautiful of lives. But we have to generate that trust first.
yeah.
And so very often we're still doing the same thing, but we're just allowing it to be a little bit more easy to grasp.
Mm,
You know, when the light comes through, we're generating words around it. What's the label of it so that they can keep reaching in and bring it back up whenever they want. And then we're going to the trigger probably a little bit quicker and the symptom a little bit quicker than with more experienced clients, where it's like, okay, well, now what changes about the actual problem you came here with? Oh, it's not a problem. Wonderful. Well, my more advanced clients already know that it's not going to be a problem because they've been through the process so much. We don't need to jump right up there. But for that initial stage, we go through the same process, but we're just, I think, adding more words to it
mm.
to help all
That's
parts
exactly
of
what
the
I do.
mind get it, you know,
Yeah, exactly.
and generating that trust. And that's not even with clients. I think that's even within ourselves too,
Yeah.
right? I don't know about you. I'm sure it is as well. But even for me, when I have certain parts of myself that are in more fear or just less trusting,
Mm,
I tend to have to be a lot more concrete with them. I often
yeah.
give them labels to hold on to
Yeah.
so
They can
that
feel
they
it.
can like, yeah,
Yeah.
because when they're getting triggered and I'm in like a overwhelmed situation and I'm not operating from my best self,
Mm,
you know, I can't just access that really subtle, amazing state that I might usually be in,
mm.
but I might need something that's a little bit more handheld where I can go, all right, come back to the lightness. Oh, okay, cool. I got it. I got something that's in my back pocket that I can
Yeah.
connect to. And so, yeah, I'm curious
Yeah.
what emerges for you around this.
What you're saying is also the danger where you can get too much into that. I guess we can call it light work. Um,
Mm,
it's just like such a human developmental thing. Like it's not due to ignorance, it's not due to narcissism or egocentricity, although all those things can obviously happen in all of us, right? But either you just work on the problem or you just go straight into thriving, you know? It's very rare that you meet people that will be like, "Oh, I have a concrete part coming up in me. Let's work with that. Oh, this part's more subtle. Let me work with that. This part's more metro aware. Let me work with that." Right? What I hear from you is when you're saying this is you have to accommodate everything inside of the person. And although there are stages of development, stages of maturity, that doesn't make one stage's want greater than the other.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if somebody needs a bit more of a concrete step by step, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this, that is just as valid as somebody who wants to work on the real like state cultivations, be a real state master, like tap into states of like equanimity, compassion, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I see it in a lot of coaches. I saw it in myself as well on my journey, where you're almost like, oh yeah, but that stuff doesn't really matter. Like let's get to the good stuff, you know? And it's like, no, everything that's coming up needs to be held and loved unconditionally and accepted unconditionally. And not only does it just
yeah,
be accepted unconditionally, but you have to provide it with something that it needs. Something's more belief based and more concrete, you have to give it that. If something's more of an ego want, like I want this and it's not coming out of shadow, you know, that can be like healthy sexual desire, that can be a desire to just want to have fun, that can be a desire to just dominate in a sport. You know, Cameron's going to be doing his first jiu-jitsu competition soon. So we're going to be
yeah,
making him just go into that state of a conqueror, all that kind of thing, you know?
yeah,
You have to work with everything that's coming up. That is what I see for a lot of people that have been kind of feel like maybe they don't have the capacity to change because almost always it's because the person or the things that they've worked on, maybe the mentors they've had or the frameworks they've had access to, they haven't accommodated that.
mm,
They haven't accommodated like really allowing every single part to be carried along this transformation. Usually they get to the
yeah,
transformation, they even get to the change, the root cause, boom, they're there. And then that critical questioning part that really just wants the best for them comes up, but it is disguised as like a critical and a cold kind of part or voice in themselves. And the reason why it has to do that is because it's been split off from the rest of them. and that's the only way it can get attention and get its needs met. Like, "Is this actually gonna happen? I don't wanna be disappointed," right? Instead of pushing that away or pretending that it's not there, no, we address that, we bring it in, you know? We see if it's
Yeah.
introjection, then we let go if it's hold on if there's an introjection it's holding on to. But if it's like a real skeptical part of us, what a beautiful part that it wants
Yeah.
to check everything, that it wants to be realistic, that it doesn't wanna get disappointed again. That's a big thing that comes up, right, Cameron? Like, they don't wanna be disappointed if it doesn't work. That's like a massive one
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that always comes up. I mean,
Ah,
isn't that how you want your friend to be? The one
yeah.
that
Sounds like a lot
doesn't
of care.
exactly. The one that doesn't get, pulled into your ambitious storylines and just positive thinking. You want that friend to, when everyone's, like, celebrating you, to obviously have a lot of care and love for you, and a lot of the time the voice doesn't lead with that, which is why that voice also has to be held accountable, right? We're not just
Yeah.
saying that it's something which is super mature and it's the thing that we have to look up to, but you want that friend to be like, "Hey, bro," or "Hey, I don't think that's a good idea." And I'm saying
Mm,
that because I'm your friend and my love and my care for you means more than me allowing you to go down this path, which I thought about a lot and I know you very well, and I have to say something. That's a good friend,
yeah.
and that's what that part's like
Yeah.
for you, right?
Yeah.
And then, funnily enough, when you let that part understand that you genuinely think that way about it, then it loosens up,
Mm,
and it usually apologizes,
yeah.
and it says, I didn't even know I was coming across like that. I just wanted us to be safe."
Yeah.
That is almost always why that change thing is, there. The other way, which is a little bit different, is that maybe we've tried to change a lot and we just haven't been able to get anything going. And then we create a meaning making that we can't change.
Mm, yeah. Sometimes people have trouble with that follow through, I
Yeah,
found,
yeah. The
you
follow
know, when it,
up. Yeah.
yeah. And so they have the initiation of, I want to change,
Mm,
but then they struggle at that second stage of following through to actually getting to real results.
yeah,
And they go back to initiation again
yeah,
with a new thing. And they just stay in the story of, I can't change.
yeah,
And it's not that they can't, it's just they stop themselves. There's this quote like stopping themselves 5 feet from gold,
yeah.
you know.
Stay in the pocket.
And yeah, it's got to stay through it.
Yeah,
Like almost a little bit of that robustness and that,
I like that word.
yeah, robustness, I think is a good word here.
Mm,
But it's probably the positive quality you might see of like hustle culture. I think hustle culture as a whole often creates a lot of pressure, a lot of stress.
yeah,
But if we look at the positive qualities underneath
mm,
that we might want to take from it, robustness is kind of a big one.
yeah,
Robustness and consistency and just, progressing towards a goal despite it's sometimes looking like it's not going to work.
mm,
Right.
yeah,
And so that's a big one as well, I think, where sometimes people, especially possibly if they've almost either skipped 3.5 or they can almost disown it. I
mm,
get that. I know for me, when I was much more in initial 4.0 and I had that distaste for 3.5 in the stages model,
yeah,
I would, the idea of being robust and pushing through to get to some real richness
mm,
was like, oh no, almost a low direction. I'm not doing that. I'm just in light and love. None of this
yeah,
robustness for me.
yeah,
I can't do that.
yeah,
And in many ways, that makes it a little bit challenging to break through sometimes because we're not able to access that follow through
yeah,
because we've developed a little bit of a reaction towards it.
yeah. And then we make the storyline that, oh, we have followed through, when really what you've just been doing is starting over again continuously
Yeah,
and never actually staying
yeah,
in the follow through, right? We're gonna see if Cameron lives up to what he's saying, is see if he follows through in this competition.
yeah. I mean, touch wood, unless I'm
Yeah,
getting injured, which, touch wood, I hope I don't.
and then
I'm pretty committed to it.
yeah,
So it will
100%.
be a challenge,
It's
but
in
I
the
think it's
match
going
though.
to be fun.
That's the other thing as well.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, making sure you stay through, follow through, completion, all that kind of stuff. It's just like something funny to talk about. But yeah, it's like there's that thing. Then there's also completion. Like people sometimes get stuck at the completion level, don't they? Like they really have
Mm.
completed it, but then they can't seem to finish it. I'm working with a client who has a funny thing around this, and he's gotten better and better and better at it. But it's almost like what completion signifies. Actually, what completion signifies is the end of who you are, kind of,
Mm.
which is just arising for me right now. Because what I mean by that is the people that have issues around completion that I've worked with, it's because in order for you to complete this chapter, the old chapter has to be closed, obviously, because it's the new chapter now, right? You have
Yeah.
to complete that. And it's that new chapter, the new sensation, that novelty, that's the thing which seems to be a hang up for some people, right? Now,
Mm.
me and you, luckily, this was not really one of our big things, I don't think, completing.
I, I would actually say I feel like I definitely had a little bit of something there.
Really?
It was specifically around completion and being like, is this fully done? There was an anxiety to saying it was done,
Wow.
you know? It was like,
Okay.
is it fully done? I don't
Okay.
want to go and like turn my back on it
Mm,
and find out I got to go back and complete it.
interesting.
And do you know where it came from, which was really interesting? I had a teacher when I was younger, and she was like a very mean supply teacher, right?
That's a
And
classic
I remember,
archetype in the UK.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And it was like, I was like, I've done my work. It wasn't for anything, it wasn't like for a real exam or anything. It was like just some random piece of work which she was supply teaching. And she wouldn't let me go until everything was perfect to like our break time, right? And as a kid at like year three, so what you're, I don't know, like 8 or 9, that's
Yeah.
like break time is like life.
Yeah.
That's
Break
like the
time
most
is life.
important thing in the world.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, every time I feel like I've completed it, I'm getting told it's wrong and
Yeah.
not perfect, and I have to stay again. And so I would have this like, I've completed it, so just be like smacked down. No,
Yeah.
you haven't.
Yeah.
And that like really stayed as a thing.
Tough
And it
cycle.
correlated for some other teachers as well.
Yeah.
But for me, when I was getting to completion with that shadow, I would
Mm.
be like, is it actually done? Or I don't want to say it's done because I don't want to celebrate and then get that disappointment of like, oh no, it's not actually done.
Yeah.
So that was interesting to just
That
notice
is a
that.
big one. Yeah. People don't want to feel like they're being pulled back. I guess maybe we should
Yeah.
say the distinction between follow through and completion. How would you define that? Because maybe it can be a little bit confusing. I know I maybe got a little bit confused. I would say follow through is like the bit between everything after you start something and everything before like the very like finishing final touches of something. And then
Yeah.
completion is like the actual like finishing up of something, like finishing
Yeah.
start,
Like
say.
like the final sprint of the race.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I'd say that's probably completion. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just trying to think about where I fall. I mean, I fall on all areas of this. I guess what I was getting at with completion is I never had the thing around um being scared of something new. I was always very forward
Mm.
facing, right? Actually, tell a lie, there was one situation where I was afraid of that, and that was when we were doing our really hardcore Buddhist practice with Sister Kama in
Right.
Nevada.
Yeah.
So the method that we use, Theravadan Buddhism, there's 8 jhanas, and you can fall through the jhanas, each stage getting deeper. There's actually 4 jhanas, but they split the fourth one up into four, so it's eight, right? There's the Rupa jhanas and the Arupa jhanas. The Rupa jhanas are the body sensations. The Arupa jhanas are the mental, or how do they call it again? Like
Mental. I think it's
yeah,
mental.
the the,
Yeah.
men- the
It's been
mental.
a like 3 years since we've studied this properly with
Yeah,
Sister.
yeah.
So for
So
everyone that's listening.
yeah, so if everyone listening is sorry, my Pali isn't perfect. Um, let me just check if there we going. There we go. So when it comes to that, there's a stage which you get to like just before you fall through, basically, which is falling through is like essentially what happens apparently is like you're for like a millisecond, like your consciousness or your personality just stops firing. And that's why it's called cessation. There's a cessation to your being, and then you pop back on again, basically. And it's like boom, like that. And there's like a stage you can get to just before it where you're really deep in a rupa jhana, which is the eighth jhana called um, perception or
Mm,
non-perception, which is, as the name suggests, you're neither perceiving nor non-perceiving. It's really hard to explain. And how you know you're in it is you only know you're in it after you come out of it. It's like a
mm,
weird kind of like dreamlike state that you're in. And it's not even dreamlike because in dreams you are perceiving. It's like a super strange kind of like weird part of your unconscious you go into. I don't know how you would explain it. There's a point where you can kind of get to where it feels like you're right at the edge of if you push through or you fall through, like that's the end of you, is what it felt like. To me at least. It felt like Aaron is dying if he goes through that, basically.
yeah.
That is a point of where I was afraid of something new beginning. Because it really felt like I was going to die. I know that Cameron got excited by it whenever he
See, that was my problem, was a little bit different, but it's
yeah.
fascinating hearing your perspective.
That's what it felt. It's funny because when you're in neither perception or non-perceiving, it doesn't get internalized as dying because you don't really have a concept
Mm,
of what dying is. You don't have a concept of anything
yeah.
really. You're just like, this is it. You know. It's
Mm,
only when I came out of it that I'm like, bro, I think I'm afraid of like this thing that's happening. And then every once in a
yeah.
while, you get bored on like a 3 hour sit. And I'd open my eyes because Cameron was doing it in the same room, and he just had the biggest smile on his face, like wanting to almost like lean into like where I was coming through, like
Yeah.
you got
For
so
me, it
excited.
was, I just wanted it so bad. I'm
Yeah.
like, get me through. Like, how much do I have to pay to get through?
Yeah.
There wasn't any worry about like the end of it. It was like,
Right.
bro, why is this taking so long?
Ah,
Just let
yeah.
me through.
That
And that
impatience.
that was creating the tension
Yeah.
because part of me was like, I really need to. It was interpreting it a little bit via achievement and progressing.
Yeah.
And it was like, I need to progress to the next stage of not being anything.
It's so
Um,
ridiculous when you put it like that. Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy how your constructs arise even in
Yeah.
intense spiritual practice, where it's not
Yeah.
about being anything, it's about getting, removing attachment to your personality
Mm.
in many ways.
Mhm.
And yet your constructs can arise within it
Yeah.
of just like, I'm gonna get through this. Yeah, that's right, sister. 3 hours. But how
Yeah.
many hours do I need to do? 5 hours? All right, I'll do that.
Yeah. As soon as Sister told us that she hasn't met anyone who didn't do a 3 hour sit recently who fell through, that's the moment that me and Cameron started doing weekly 3 hour sits.
Three
Such a
hours
bad
sits. Yeah.
motivation. Such a Looking back at
Yeah.
it, it was such an achiever based,
Oh,
pushing
yeah.
through. But I guess it gets you where you're going. How did we get
Yeah.
onto this topic? I guess what it relates to is when we come back to like change, there's like so many conditions and constructs we can have around what it means to change and what it means to be different and what it means about us if we do change or we don't, and successes and all that kind of stuff. But as simple as this sounds, how you can measure everything that you have is this beneficial to me? This is like a very cognitive restructuring thing that I'm about to say. So sometimes that can do really deep change if it just clicks and it's just what you needed to hear. Other times it's something that you have to work with, obviously, a bit more. But with this thing, it's like, well, the reason why we hold on to this like skepticism, like, is this actually working, is because we're convinced that somehow like its utility is more useful to us than not, unconsciously, right?
Mm,
But if you just run it through like the beneficial scanner, like, is this actually beneficial to me? Well, no, because this is actually the thing that makes change more difficult for me because I'm
yeah.
trying to check it against something when change is something that happens spontaneously, suddenly, or gradually. But if I have this really concrete pinpoint, this is what it means to change that I'm constantly putting it up against, it's like me measuring. Like if we talk about jujitsu, like this is what a blue belt's supposed to look like. Well, there's like a million different blue belts. out there.
Yeah.
Like,
Mm.
imagine I'm trying to measure like everyone up to this one standard of what a blue belt is.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna miss like so much actual like blue belt level, so much actual progress, so many students that have potential because you have this concrete idea of what it means to change, of what it means to be a blue belt.
Mm. Yeah.
That's what it comes up to be. What do you think about that?
Or it's even like just measuring the change by the white belts of a blue belt.
Yeah,
Yeah, sometimes it can be as concrete as that. Like we only change measure it like that, and for anyone who hasn't experienced a little bit of jujitsu, it's like a 2 year gap often. Like that's
yeah.
probably the
It's not
average,
it's not
right?
easy to get promoted in
It's
jiu-jitsu.
not easy.
Yeah,
It's like, I mean, there's some guys who are like still white belts in my gym who destroy me, and I've been going fairly hard at it for like 5 months
yeah,
now, and
yeah,
they are so much better than me,
yeah,
and they're still white belts.
yeah.
And so if we're measuring progress just by that obvious white to blue, we're missing like 2 years of real development and growth.
Mm,
And I suppose that's the same sometimes we do that in our mind where we have such just obvious kind of checks that now we've progressed, now we're there.
yeah.
And I remember you used to have a concept which um, was really, really powerful around this that you got from Trip. If you,
Mm.
I don't know if it's ringing a bell,
Vaguely.
around like focusing on the minor change rather than just the major change.
Ah, right. You
That
mean
makes sense.
the difference that makes the difference, right? Yeah. So there's a
Yeah,
polarity of minor versus major change, which is sometimes some people are so stuck in their old, like stale constructs, neural pathways, whatever you want to call it, that that stuckness doesn't even allow them to see the small differences. And it's actually by
yeah,
seeing the small differences a lot of the time that enables you to see the big differences because they stack
yeah.
on top of each other. And that can create how I used to describe it to clients. It's funny, I mean, this is internalized in my work, but I completely forgot this until you brought it up, which is you have like a boulder that's blocking your path. Sometimes you don't have that energy to push it all at once. But what you do have that energy is to see in the boulder where the cracks are and then to get a pickaxe and just hammer away piece by piece. Boom, 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 boom. Those are the little wins, little wins, little wins into this crack until all of a sudden the boulder just splits open in half. And to anyone looking at
Yeah.
that from a distance, it looks like massive change all at once because they can't see that you've been chipping away for a while. That's what it means to have small change versus gradual change, or small change
Mm,
versus big change. And a lot of the
yeah.
time, we can think that we're coping or we're copping out or we're lying to ourselves if we celebrate every small win. But there's a massive utility to that. There was in my
Mm,
journey and a lot of my clients
yeah.
as well, right? In my journey, it was like, it's almost like it felt like cheating to acknowledge like the small wins. But as soon as I started to do it,
Mm,
you create this massive compounding winner effect. Compound interest, the most powerful thing in the universe, you know?
yeah. Yeah.
The
It's
most
crazy.
powerful thing in existence is compounded interest. So you work with that, and suddenly, all of a sudden, you're just noticing all of the small changes. And if you're noticing all of the small changes, then that's a big change because suddenly what that's getting to you is the reality that you can change. And not only are you can change, that we are constantly changing. So a way that you
Yeah.
can test that is you can say, would I go back to who I was a year ago from now?
Mm,
I've never heard someone say yes to that question.
yeah.
That shows that there's a
Yeah.
difference
Yeah.
right
That's
there.
a great question.
Yeah.
You know, just what I think about from a ESR Kimbata
Mhm.
perspective is when I've noticed some people with will have a huge breakthrough, right? And just this incredible light will emerge. That's like a completely different way of experiencing their entire life.
Mhm.
And that's like it at 100%. And then the next day it doesn't show up as 100%, right? Because
Yeah.
they're not as trained in state work, right? It's
Mhm.
just it's very new. and make you a little bit disappointed.
Yeah.
And I remember at the beginning, I was like, well, what do I do? Do I need to get them to 100%? How do we get past this? And I just started to explore, what's it like to just feel it at a 1%? We're
Wow,
like,
I
oh,
like
it's
that.
pretty nice.
Yeah,
It's just actually pretty nice. Yeah.
yeah,
What about 2, 3? And if they got to the point where 24 hours a day it was at 3%, it
mm,
makes such a difference to their life.
yeah,
And then that celebration was so big that it would often get to 5 to 10%,
yeah,
which is
exactly.
then to 20, until eventually it's as strong as it was on the first call,
Mm,
24/7.
yeah,
But it had to start with that 1%.
exactly.
I'm like, what's it just like that?
It's the difference that makes the difference, right?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it
exactly.
lays the foundations of what comes next. And I used to feel a little bit insecure about celebrating that because I'm like, oh, am I just copping out as like a coach? But then when I
Mm,
re-owned that projection and I gave myself permission to actually be the person who was genuinely celebrating for the other person, for my client, right? That little difference. Then gave them permission to do the same for themselves.
yeah, yeah.
And then
And
results happen. When I say results
yeah,
happen, it means that you don't have such a binary of good or bad. It just everything is an improvement. And if everything is an improvement, then it means that it means that someone's transformation goes much, much faster.
yeah. And then just the boulder eventually splits because
Exactly.
you're actually doing it, you're consistent, and you're celebrating those wins, which just grow until it splits down the middle.
Splits down the middle.